I want to talk to you about what happened that 1st of May in Imola, because I, as a journalist, have investigated that episode for a long time, and many of my colleagues have investigated it as well. For several weeks it was a mystery. The accident, the causes of the accident, the consequences of the accident had never been explained enough. However, the work of these investigations carried out by the sports newspapers of the time, Autosprint, Rombo, where I work, newspapers that I have directed both in my career, allow me to truly tell what happened that 1st of May in Imola, because I succeeded in my journalistic investigations. To uncover the telemetry of Senna's Williams, which clearly states what happened to his car. On the 1st of May in Imola at 1417 here, at the Tamburello corner. This is the playback of Senna's Williams telemetry at the moment of the accident. How did I come into possession of it? It's a very strange and curious story that I want to tell you. The accident happened on Sunday, then all of us journalists, we started investigating in the following days about the possible causes of that accident. One fine day, someone gave me the opportunity to examine Senna's Williams telemetry. Contrary to what was said after the accident, it is not true that the control units of that car were destroyed. On the contrary, the Williams technicians, after the accident, downloaded the data from the control units and printed them on graph paper. Then they handed this material over to the circuit organization. A few weeks later, this material was given to the judge and prosecutors investigating the incident. However, I had the opportunity in the days immediately following to see the content of these telemetries, and now I will tell you about them. The Williams telemetry was printed on a sheet of graph paper collected in a ring binder. I leafed through those sheets, finding those of the exact lap, the 7th lap where the accident occurred. Unable to photograph them because there were no mobile phones at the time, I traced those sheets very accurately with tracing paper. And then I reproduced them on the computer. This is the drawing I reproduced. I only traced the main lines, so I limited myself to the red line, which indicates the throttle opening, the blue line, which indicates the speed, and this black line, which indicates the hydraulic pressure of the steering, and this darker line below, which indicates the force that was applied to the steering. Below, on the x-axis, there are the seconds. Because the telemetry resets every lap when the car crosses the finish line and starts recording the car's time. Let's recount to that last lap of Ayrton Senna. He crosses the finish line, the control unit starts recording the data, and at the 11th second, Zapata, from the moment he crossed the finish line, the control unit records fairly normal data. The speed is over 300 km/h, 306, 307 km/h. The pressure on the steering and the force applied to the steering wheel have positive values. The throttle pedal, this red line, is open at 100%. This indicates the throttle valve. Suddenly at 11.3 seconds, what happens? We are right at the entrance of the Tamburello corner. Anomalous values are generated on the car. The control unit records these anomalous values. The hydraulic pressure of the steering suddenly rises and then begins to fall. And this is wrong because Ayrton is tackling the Tamburello corner. At this point, he should have the steering slightly turned to the left and apply a strong torque to the steering wheel to keep the car on track. In fact, the torque is applied, but the hydraulic pressure does not follow the trend. It doesn't rise. It starts to fall, to fall, to fall. The key moment is here at 11.3 seconds. Senna realizes that there is something unusual with the car and reduces the throttle by 50%. Do you see the red line indicating the throttle opening? It drops to halfway. No driver at the Tamburello corner takes their foot halfway off the gas. It's a corner that is tackled at full speed because it's a curved straight. If a driver slows down, it indicates that there is a serious problem with the car. At second 11.3, Senna drastically reduces the speed of the Williams, takes his foot off the gas. Halfway, something that is never done at the Tamburello curve because it is taken at full speed. He realized that there is something unusual with the car. The hydraulic pressure values and the torque applied to the steering are dropping. Is there something not working? On the Williams, the speed begins to decrease, but only slightly. 0.2 of a second pass at second 11.5. Senna realizes that there is a serious issue truly serious problem with the Williams. He completely takes his foot off the gas. He realized that the car has become unmanageable. It is no longer following the trajectory. It is leaving the track. It is going straight. It no longer follows the asphalt nose. The Williams is going off the track. Senna brakes. We do not have the braking trace in the telemetry because there were no sensors on the braking system, but we can see it from the speed line that drops drastically. From 300, it goes down to 250, heading towards 200 kilometers per hour. He is really desperately trying to keep the car on the road. A second passes, the values completely collapse and the car goes off the track and crashes into the wall. At 12.8 seconds, all the information shuts down. The control units transmit values completely at zero, which means the car has crashed into the wall. Just a second and a half has passed since Ayrton detected the first problem while tackling the Tamburello in his Williams. At 300 kilometers per hour, you cover over 90 meters per second, so in a fraction of a few tenths, he desperately tried to react, but he couldn't control the car. And he crashed into the Tamburello wall. We know then that the fatal injuries were inflicted by the suspension arm, which folded back on itself in the impact against the wall. And it pierced his helmet at the level of the visor, the most fragile and weakest point of the entire protective helmet. What conclusions can we draw from this telemetry of Senna's Williams? That on that day, that 1st of May 1994, something broke on the Williams. And from here, it is unequivocally understood that the steering column broke. The steering wheel column that Senna had modified during the weekend because he was not comfortable with the driving position of the Williams. Under the stress of the G-force in the corner at the Tamburello curve, the failed steering column tilted and Senna found himself with a car whose steering wheel no longer responded to his commands. What impresses me is that from this telemetry, the original of which was in the hands of the judges who investigated the accident for many years, it was very clear what happened. I understood it myself. It was explained to me by a Ferrari engineer who examined it with me. Yet the trial took 5 long years to reach the conclusion that something had broken on the Williams. So much time passed and the defendants were acquitted, yet not understanding for so many long years what really happened. This is not acceptable. The sports fans and Senna supporters did not deserve this. The story of Ayrton Senna's tragedy from 30 years ago ends here. These colored traces of the telemetry remain, which I have traced from the original, and every time I see these colored lines, I don't see a diagram, I don't see numbers, I don't see normal lines. I see the last seconds of life of one of the greatest drivers in the history of Formula One, who is desperately trying to keep a car on the road that no longer responds to his commands. In a second and a half, he did everything he could to straighten the trajectory of that Williams, and he didn't succeed.